Well, we got some huge news out of China today in regards to Apple, and I want to break this down fully for you guys here today. A lot of people are confused on why this happened. A lot of people are thinking, are all Apple products banned in China? Are all iPhone units banned in China? We're going to get into all of this, why China made this move. I want to talk about what this means in regards to the Qualcomm-Apple relationship. I want to talk about what it means to other semiconductor companies out there. We're going to go through this fully today. Hit a thumbs up if you enjoy this video today, guys. So first off, as far as Apple stock today, it was dipping pretty big. It was down to about 163, which is the lowest it's been in quite a while. But it did bounce back to about 169 by the close of today. So maybe that, part of that was because the markets were being really weak. Maybe part of that was because some more was understood about this whole situation. All right. Now, in order to really understand what is going on there, you got to go back to another situation that has nothing really to do with Apple, but this is really affecting Apple, okay? So just a few days ago, China warned the Canadian ambassador that if Meng Wanzhou, the chief financial officer of the telecom tech giant Huawei, is not released, there will be grave consequences. According to CBS, Chinese officials told the ambassador that Meng's detention while traveling through Canada on suspicion of violating U.S. trade embargoes on Iran, which could net her a 30-year sentence if she is extradited to the U.S. and convicted, is unreasonable and unconscionable and vile in nature, okay? This is a massive, massive deal going on. We know, obviously, there's a trade situation between the United States and China. That's already gotten really ugly. But then this individual, the CFO of Huawei's a Chinese company that's a massive company. One of their kind of almost like the Apple of China is what Huawei is, okay? And this woman, the CFO, is the daughter of the gentleman who started the company. So it'd almost be like Steve Jobs' daughter getting arrested in China back in the day or something like that. Like, this is an absolute crazy deal. China wants her back, and so this is just a massive, massive deal. And so it's just gotten ugly, okay? So, and also a growing number of companies across China have now announced new policies requiring the exclusive use of Huawei products, and in some cases penalizing employees who purchase iPhones in what appears to be a growing domestic movement to support Chinese tech giant after the arrest of one of its top executives in Canada. So this has just gotten into be a really, really ugly situation. Apple's been thrown in the spotlight. This has nothing to do with Apple, but because Apple is the darling of the United States, Apple does a ton of business out in China. All of a sudden, Apple's just gotten dragged into this massive situation. So if you're looking for something that the Chinese would want to do, a company they would specifically want to hurt, they would specifically want to hurt Apple. And I'll explain in a minute why that's actually a really bad move for China, because this is a really bad move for China. Okay, so Apple was ordered by the Chinese court to stop selling older iPhone models after finding the company infringed on 2 patents held by Qualcomm, casting uncertainty over Apple's business in the critical market. Apple said its full portfolio of iPhones in China remain on sale, and it plans to appeal the court's decision. Qualcomm said the Intermediate People's Court of China found Apple had infringed on 2 patents, one related to the photo editing and another for swiping on a touchscreen device, all right? So if you guys didn't already know, Qualcomm and Apple have been in a massive legal battle for many, many years. Qualcomm's a huge semiconductor company that used to get a ton of business from Apple, one of the biggest semiconductor companies in all of the world. They benefited from the huge mobile wave, and so they've been in a legal battle for years and years. And then all of a sudden, with the Huawei situation that happens, and then all of a sudden you have China make a decision like this, now we're going to ban some models of iPhones. Now, for one, it's not any of the newest iPhones. They're talking about the previous generation of iPhones, which iPhone 10 isn't even on sale anymore, so that one's pretty much non-existent. But they're mainly kind of talking about like iPhone 8 and maybe even the iPhone 7, which could be ones that sell decently still in China, especially iPhone 8, because it's a cheaper phone that more Chinese people could afford versus the $1,000 or $1,200 phone, okay? So Apple's gotten dragged in this mess, and you have the Chinese court obviously make a decision like this at a very particular time. Like, why wasn't this decision made a long time ago? Why couldn't it be made in the future? Why else and right now is a decision like this made, right? Now, this is coming out of Apple, okay? They say Qualcomm's effort to ban our products is another desperate move by companies whose illegal practices are under investigation by regulators around the world, Apple said in a statement earlier Monday. All iPhone models remain available for our customers in China. Qualcomm is asserting 3 patents that have never been raised before, including one of which has already been invalidated. We will pursue our legal options through the courts. Apple claims that the patents in question do not cover the company's latest operating system that comes installed on new iPhones. They're mainly talking about it was iOS 11, okay? General counsel for Qualcomm, Don Rosenberg, said in a statement Monday that the orders aren't specific to the operating system installed on the phones, okay? This is a big deal, okay? So what does this mean for Apple? What does this mean for Qualcomm? Well, first off, for Apple, it means that their iPhones should maybe still be available for sale. It's a real hairy situation right now. And it looks like even if iPhones were banned, some of the models, it would not be the latest models in China. It would be the previous models, okay? If they were to actually, China was really to crack down on this, which if honestly Huawei CFO is not released or something, China may enforce this very tough and say, hey, get all iPhone models that are anything but the very newest ones off the market. It's just China trying to use leverage. That's the first point. China wants to hurt Apple for leverage in this Huawei situation. Apple is so important in the United States. It's such the company that's kind of the guiding light. They bring in so much profits. They pay so much in taxes. They have so many employees, all those type of things, okay? So anytime Apple's hurt, it hurts the overall stock market. It hurts pretty much everything across the board. So China wants to use this as leverage. Number two, Qualcomm and Apple may never ever do business again. It looked like maybe they could be getting back together, or maybe they had a potential to get back together. This situation has gotten so ugly now that I doubt Qualcomm and Apple will ever do business together, and if they do, it's going to be like 10 years plus from now. Any of the current management teams of Apple, I doubt will ever want to do business with Qualcomm. You don't go, pissing off one of the biggest tech companies in all the world, if not the biggest tech company, and a company that uses very premium products that you can get a lot of money in these devices. Apple only sells like at the high end, right? So all these semiconductors that actually go into iPhones are usually very high dollar type semiconductors, right? And this situation has gotten so ugly now that I cannot foresee a situation where Qualcomm and Apple do business together, at least for many years into the future. I just don't think that it's at all realistic. These companies have, it's just gotten so ugly now that I just don't see it, okay? Number three, Qualcomm thinks they are being smart, but really they're being dumb in the situation. So Qualcomm thinks they're being smart and they're trying to outsmart Apple and whatnot. This is just a bad look for Qualcomm, okay? One, you're pretty much making the biggest, one of the biggest tech companies in the world never want to do business with you again, okay? That's obviously a very negative thing, but also with you going back and forth with a huge tech company like this, you know what all the other tech companies are looking at it? They might act like they're cheering for you. Oh yeah, fight those Apple. You know what really they're thinking behind Qualcomm's back? They're like, wait till Qualcomm tries to do something like this to us. Imagine if we got in a legal battle with Qualcomm. It's just a negative thing out there that a lot of big tech companies are not going to trust Qualcomm and are always going to have this in the back of their mind like, wow, if our relationship goes Apple or bad, maybe we're going to be in an Apple-Qualcomm situation where we got a ton of legal cost in there and whatnot, and this thing's going to go really south. So I think Qualcomm thinks they're being smart. I think they're not making the best decision for their long-term future, all right? Number four is this is good news for all Qualcomm competitors. Let me explain that and then we'll get into why this is not the best move for China, okay? But this is a good news for all Qualcomm competitors because here's the thing. If you're a Qualcomm competitor, no matter what space you compete in, pretty much as far as Apple goes, Qualcomm's an unrealistic option for them going forward. I highly doubt Apple's ever going to want to use them again, and if they do, it's going to be so many years from now, it's not even funny, okay? So if Qualcomm's a big competitor because they have so many chips and so many different things. So if you're looking at it and you're buying into a semiconductor company, you just realize that you got like one big competitor out of there now because Apple's pretty much not even looking like they want to ever do business with Qualcomm again. So you just got a big competitor out of there, right? If I look at a company like I own Cirrus Logic, they compete in some same spaces as Qualcomm, okay? They sell some similar products, smart codecs and some amps and things like that. Now that Qualcomm's an unrealistic option, it makes one less competitor for Cirrus Logic, which gives them more pricing power against Apple, right? If you have a million different companies doing the same thing, or not a million, but just 3 or 4, it makes your pricing advantage less and less because they can go to somebody else. But when you have one of the biggest companies out there, out of the way, all of a sudden that is very good for you. And Qualcomm competes with a lot of companies in the semiconductor space. Not the best move for China, in my opinion. Okay, if we look at it, China gets a lot of employees of China are direct employees really because of Apple, okay? If we think about Foxconn and Pegatron, some of those companies out in China that actually assemble the iPhones, massive amounts of employees are because of Apple, okay? So if you take Apple out of the market or you're hurting Apple sales in China, that's less employees that are getting less hours at some of those massive factories, all right? That's just one part. You have a ton of companies that make a lot of money that are Chinese companies, that are Chinese businesses that make a lot of money from apps in app stores and things like that on Apple devices. If you take that away, right, we know the spend on an Apple device is much heavier than an Android device. You take that away, then all of a sudden you're hurting your own businesses. So in my opinion, at least in China, this isn't the best move to really aggressively go against Apple, because Apple, you know, indirectly or directly is responsible for mass amounts of Chinese jobs over there. So if you're hurting Apple, you're kind of hurting yourself at the same time. So we'll see how this shakes out, but I just want to be clear, it does not mean all iPhone models are banned. As of right now, all iPhones are still available in the market, but you know, if this Huawei situation gets worse, she's extradited to the US, maybe gets a lengthy jail sentence, maybe China could go ahead and crack down and say, you know what, anything that's other than your most current iPhones, they're banned for now or something like that. That's always a possibility, and it's a risk for Apple stock, and it's a risk for the semiconductor stocks that are involved with Apple as well. We'll see how all this plays out over time. I think it's a bad situation for almost everybody across the board, specifically Qualcomm the most. Also a bad situation for China, and it's a bad situation for Apple. It's almost like no one's really winning in this situation. I'll be completely honest, guys. Anyways, I want to hear what your opinion is down there in that comment section. As always, hit a thumbs up if you enjoy my videos each day. Thank you for watching and have a great day.